no idea where this will lead us, but I have a definite feeling it will be a place both wonderful and strange.
Hello, and welcome to the wonderful and strange Twin Peaks Logcast. I'm Kalil, and with me today is the garden rake to my left face cheek.
You!
Hi.
Kalil!
Yes.
Owe me
Yes.
an answer!
Today we are looking at episode 12, The Orchid's Curse,
Kalil?
written by Barry Pullman, directed by Graham Clifford, the only directing credit in this series. We're about 1/4 the way through the TV series of Twin Peaks.
You owe me an answer. Here's a little background, listeners. All right, here's a little background, and I'm sure Kalil is going to be pushing it off to who knows when in this podcast. But I was told that apparently I can't have an answer to a question about a Mr. Tojamura and who his potential actor is. So right now, I am
ready at this time to bring you information. What the professor doesn't realize is that I like to take my time before giving a proper answer. I told him to wait for the podcast so I could do my basic fundamental research as a podcaster. So, Professor, I want to know before I answer, what is so important to you about this question before I deliver to you the answer you seek?
It's important to me because Tojamura is definitely giving off some very, very, very interesting vibes. As someone who has personally watched different bits of Japanese media and has enjoyed them, from live action movies to various medias in anime, I have never, ever, ever heard anyone sound like Tojamura in this media, or any media in general. So, I just want an answer, Kalil. I just want an answer, please.
Okay.
Who is Tojamura's actor? Because right now, what Tojamura sounds like is like a child trying to make an impression of what a big buff businessman does.
Do you for sure want an answer to your question?
Why wouldn't I?
Okay. In the credits,
Okay.
it doesn't say which character this actor plays. However, it does list the name, and I have seen sources say that this is Tojamura. The actor is Fumio Yamaguchi.
Fumio Yamaguchi.
And for spoiler reasons, I would advise not looking too deeply into this actor's filmography. It will play into things later.
Okay, then could you tell me more about this actor's filmography? Tell me more about Fumio.
To be honest, not really, because like I said, there are some things I will talk about at a later date. But just to say that this actor isn't credited, this name is not used very often in films. Let's put it that way. We haven't seen many credits for Fumio Yamaguchi, but the ones that are there are worth mentioning later.
Whose corpse did they dig up named Fumio and then ask that
There
corpse
is
to
definitely
act?
a story behind it. I've told you before, this series has a very interesting history with Asian characters, and we will get to that later. But to answer your question, Fumio Yamaguchi.
I didn't realize that their history of Asian characters was to stuff multiple children in a big business suit and just say, "Oh yes, I am interested in business, Mr. Benjamin Horn."
Kind of makes sense why Jonathan didn't talk very much, because if Jonathan would have said more, it would have had a totally different speaking style too. So, it's a good thing. Are you satisfied for now? So we can continue.
No, but let's continue.
Okay, continuing in a dissatisfied manner. What I was saying earlier is that we are looking at episode 12, The Orchid's Curse.
Yeah.
This episode marks the roughly 1/4 period through the series, if we count the original and the return together.
Yeah.
So how does it feel, Professor, being about 1/4 done?
Being about 1/4 done, I feel pretty accomplished, solving all of Twin Peaks mysteries on my own with 110% accuracy.
It's a record.
Absolutely.
You're a Twin Peaks speedrunner.
I am simply Twin Peaks itself. But no, it's...
Does this feel like a show that you are 1/4 through?
Okay, here's a little bit of a background. I I've only had a few small interactions with the Twin Peaks community.
See.
I have adored any sort of feedback we've gotten on our videos or through our email. And each of the interactions, personally, thank you out there. I have gone full Twin Peaks myself. I have gotten many things that I'm not allowed to open until the end of the podcast with all the books. I got myself the Z to A collection because, by God, is this the most entertaining box to open. But most of all, one thing that I would like to shout out, I do not know if this person will ever hear this podcast or not. But I want to share my appreciation with this person. I ended up ordering the Scott Frost book that goes deeper into Dale Cooper, if you will. It's this fun little autobiography book. It's called The Autobiography of FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper, My Life, My Tapes. I took a risk in purchasing this because I didn't really see the price getting much better for this book since it was a little bit more rare. And I saw some third-party sellers on Amazon, and I just randomly chose one, ordered the book, and I was supposed to expect it mid to late July. As of recording right now, this is a little bit earlier in the month of July that I had received this, and it was wrapped up like a present. It had this lovely wrapping that when I opened it up, I got it, but there was also another small package inside of it. And a small little handwritten letter that went on to say that they hope that I enjoy this as much as they had, that overall they shared a bit of their love with Twin Peaks. And they also gave me a cassette of Diane, which is the actor for Dale Cooper, speaking some tapes from... I don't know if it's from the show or if there's extra tapes beyond the show. I'm not allowed to listen to it yet.
But Kyle MacLachlan's narrating either way.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm excited to look at that. But between this handwritten letter, between this nice wrapping, and just getting this book and this tape at once, that just warmed my heart. I at this point adore Twin Peaks, as well as all the interactions I've gotten a chance to share with other people who do enjoy Twin Peaks as well. So... I may be a fourth through it, but I'm excited to see all of this to the end.
Well, no, and there's so many fantastic people in the Twin Peaks community, and the fact that you bought the paperback version and got the cassette too, that's incredible. So I agree. Shout out to that person out there, and I'm glad to see you blossoming into such a Twin Peaks collector.
Yes, I'm very happy. I couldn't really contact the seller to check in if I could even share their name. I couldn't even really read their name on the note just because I couldn't recognize the handwriting. But if somehow you're listening out there, you saw my Amazon comment, just know, truly, I deeply, deeply appreciate it.
And speaking of people who deeply, deeply appreciate others' time and commitment, Harold Smith and
yeah.
Donna.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh. So let's run through Harold. Let's start with Harold.
No.
We had... No,
let's not run through Harold. I don't know how he'd react.
Let's run through Harold's house, take the Palmer diary, and just leave. It'll all be fine.
All be fine. No kinks in this.
So we've had a fun... We've had some good thoughts on Harold so far. It seems
Strong
like
words.
the vibes you've been getting, and I've just kind of been filtering them and reciprocating them for giggles.
Yeah.
You definitely got some creepy vibes from Harold, and I don't know what this episode did for you. I'm very curious to hear what this episode gave to you in terms of Harold Smith perspective and interpretation. So I enjoyed Harold in this episode, but what did you think?
So, in order to talk about Harold, I'll just kind of jump to Donna for a moment. For Donna, it seems that she is really trying to screw Harold over despite her affections for Harold. Mm-hmm. And this honestly makes Donna all the more interesting. I'm really loving what they're doing with Donna this season. But at the same time, I don't think Harold will reciprocate that emotion. He does agree to Donna's offer. Donna ends up saying that, hey, if you let me go ahead and read the Palmer diary, I'll be a part of this living novel of yours. And before anyone in the audience can say, no, stop, Donna, get out of there before the door closes, Harold somewhat agrees to the terms, saying he will read it. Potentially leading to this Harold
forward
filter.
closer to the camera, intriguing, and then like shifty eyes all over the room, like totally normally. I'll read it to you, but it mustn't leave this room. And Donna's just, totally
physically,
a normal,
it cannot
acceptable.
leave the room physically, so it just implies that
Yes.
only she can really keep the knowledge going out. And when she starts it, it's not even like 5 minutes into like the background information she gives. She just straight up like takes the journal, runs out the door, and just like, hey, Harold, come on, let's get out of here. And Harold tries to walk out. He looks up into the sky and he starts twitching, convulsing, and falls onto the floor, where Donna says that she's sorry. Though Donna still makes it her goal to take the diary, I'm almost just like half surprised she didn't just shove Harold back inside and take the diary and just jet.
Well, and while he's on the ground, like, hyperventilating, you just see his hand reach over, grab the diary, and like clench it to his chest, pull it close. So even in the state that he was in, he was, which you could interpret two ways. You could say he's faking it, or you could say that in the state he's in, he still had the willpower to grab that diary. Either way, in that situation, that was the most important thing, was grabbing that diary. I think that was really interesting.
I know this is no means of like A correlates to B. This could be very tangential, but this man lives next door to a child who can transport cream corn. So as far as I'm concerned, yes,
Traymons.
there could be the Traymons. There could be something that he saw or has seen that has caused him to be shoved into his little hidey hole where his plants protect. In fact, I hope that he started with those plants, because I don't know where else he got them from, being not able to get out of his home, or how he really
he can
sustains
order some
himself on his
seeds.
living. I'm sure, but how does he sustain his living? Does he sell the plants?
I could honestly see this situation where Laura or someone else is bringing him Meals on Wheels. He's just pausing midway through writing their life story down in his notebook. He just asks for some orchid seeds, and then next week when they come around, he brought some orchid seeds,
Well, that's fine, I suppose, but that doesn't pay for rent, or maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe they're
we don't know his living
plants.
situation and how much assistance he might be getting from the town or the state, given his condition.
Yeah.
I do think, before we get too far ahead in it, I would like to talk about what we do learn from Harold during the discussion with Donna prior to her, trying to get him out the door. So when they're talking, Donna says a few words about herself, and then she asks Harold, where'd you grow up? And Harold says he grew up in Boston. So he is someone who didn't grow up in Twin Peaks. He is outside. We don't know how he got from Boston to Twin Peaks, because usually it seems like when people get drawn to Twin Peaks, like Cooper did, there's something mysterious kind of at work that might bring them there. We don't quite know why Harold is in this town, or what's going on with him, but he's an outsider. But then he clarifies and says, actually, I grew up in books. Donna says, well, there are some things you can't find in books. Harold, responding again, kind of poetically, there's things you can't find anywhere, but we dream they can be found in other people. And then Donna, again, seizing the piping hot sexual tension, maybe our dreams are real. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, let me take your notebook.
Yeah, Lovecraft was also poetic at times, except when he wasn't.
And racist.
Yep.
We're not sponsored by Lovecraft. He's a wee bit racist.
And dead.
And say what we will of Donna and Harold, we haven't gotten that vibe from them yet, so I'll appreciate that. What Donna did tell, though, was a story of conflicting legal and moral concerns about 13-year-old or 14-year-old having a romantic experience with some 20-year-olds.
Yeah,
While not racist, Laura and Donna are implicated in that concern. I'm not going to say the R word that this would be considered if it went too far, because I don't know what that'll do wherever we upload this podcast. But if you're 20 years old and you're with a 14-year-old or 13-year-old, you're not even sure how old they are, and you're like in a romantic situation by a lake, don't.
Just don't.
Please just don't.
Don't.
The fact that Laura was just like running to that, again, more about Laura in case we were ever concerned that she's not the perfect angel In case we were ever in any doubt by this point in the series.
It's also telling on her entry inside of this bonus diary, where she does want to hide this darker side of herself from Donna, but there is still plenty that she is like dragging Donna into. Yeah. This was not a fun situation. Whatever.
Yes, that's a very interesting dynamic in their relationship.
Absolutely. It also kind of keeps on,
which kind of adds credence.
It makes me
go on.
It makes me kind of also think to myself, how long has the Harold had Laura around helping out? I hope that overall it was at. I don't know what hope. I don't know what to hope when it comes towards the idea of Harold as well as Laura. There's no good options.
Yeah. Okay. I was just gonna say it does add credence to what Donna was saying at the grave a previous episode, maybe it was like 2 episodes ago, where she said, that we're still trying to solve your problems, Laura, because it make me think that when Donna and Laura were together throughout their like at least teenager years, because 13 or 14, they're young teenagers, and that's maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years ago before the murder. Yeah. If in fact Laura's dead, but for at least like the past 4 or 5 years, Donna has been on the outskirts of Laura's problems. And if Laura's that willing to just like dive into situations like that are pretty risky.
Yeah.
And Donna just gets dragged in, I can definitely see this is probably not the only time that Laura's done something shady and Donna has been around for it and can't like tell anyone, doesn't want to get too involved, but at the same time, she wants to be with her friend and kind of wants to be part of that world. And it's that sort of tough situation that puts Donna in, where I really do feel like, there's probably a lot more with their relationship where Donna's been having to secretly carry some weights that she can't just tell people. The fact that this is the second thing that she decides to tell Harold, I think says a lot about what Donna wants to get off her chest. I did also think it was interesting that at the end of that story, Donna says that was the first time she ever fell in love. Meaning that, at least to Donna, the idea of love, which is kind of, a lot of people's like idea of a pure good emotion, a sign of purity is love, it's one of the ultimate good things, is marred by the situation of this is a 20-year-old kind of taking advantage of a 13 or 14-year-old in that situation. So that's her idea of falling in love. Ooh, that's rough. And I think it's interesting to consider if Donna's like the good girl of Twin Peaks, or at least was, and that's her idea of love. That's kind of a epitomization of a lot of themes, I think, in this town. They're even the purest of emotions are marred with something dark.
The thing is that I can see where Donna can get some influence from Laura being let in on these situations, but she's also very much not fully against these emotions, as she clarifies a little bit into it. And the way that she describes the man, Tim, was it?
I think that last one was Rick. Well, there's Josh, Rick,
I'm pretty
and
sure it was Tim.
Yeah, Rick. Let me look here. I'm looking at. I think it was. Yeah, it was Tim.
Yeah,
You're right. Because he's the one who doesn't do anything. He just watches.
He just watches the dancing,
and then
he
later
ends up
goes
kissing
with her.
Very intimately. It seems that there is this strange romantic air that she tries to strive for, and it does make sense why she's becoming more and more attached to Harold, because in the end, Harold is exhibiting some of these qualities Tim had given her, as well as he's not he's tied to Laura Palmer. He's not exactly the best influence from what we've seen. I think that there's a large pile of what Donna wants in Harold, and I hope that she makes out a pile of what she wants.
I imagine someone's like raking up the leaves and just like leaves this giant leaf pile and just puts a sign in front of it. This is Harold. Speaking of rakes.
Oh yeah.
By the way, I don't want to leaf that conversation, but speaking of rakes.
Yeah, but there's this point with cousin Maddie. Donna tells her that, hey, could you just kind of stand watch and kind of run into the house when Harold's not looking? I'll flash you in. And she does get caught while trying to get Laura's diary. Harold takes a moment to take this little hand gardening tool, if you will, with 3 prongs, and runs straight at Maddie. And after that, both Maddie and Donna are cornered, and Harold just makes something clear, saying like something ominous about Laura Palmer knowing who killed her. Knowing this great truth before he starts rubbing the 3-pronged gardening tool on his face. And it seems that it had a little ketchup on it because a little bit of red stuff comes out through that. It didn't seem like blood. Obviously, it was very fake blood.
Yeah, there's a bit of a production error in there. If you're watching closely, you can even see that one of the drops hits before it even actually touches the face. So, like, it's a cool trick. I get what they were going for, but they should have done another shot of that. Because you do see a splatter of red before it even touches. And I think also this show was meant to be seen on, like, CRTVs in the 90s, not on, like, HD Blu-rays. So I do wonder if it looked more realistic at the time. There are a lot of situations with Twin Peaks where I'm like, maybe this would have looked better at the time based on the quality of the TV.
The touch-ups on both the Blu-rays and Netflix are outstanding. Like, I look at the recaps in which do show some of the older footage because they don't touch that up. And then the current footage in which, it's been HD'd. And they've done an amazing job. So kudos on whoever handled these things because, this stuff is quality. But I
was looking through Twitter earlier, and I noticed someone was sharing that they found their old VHS of when they recorded the pilot, like way back when it first aired, and just like seeing the still images of the sort of the grainy quality of the VHS recording of it. If any listeners out there watched it when it originally aired, I have to imagine like seeing the Blu-ray restorations now, it's got to be almost like a new show.
Hey, Kalil, good news. The Zeta A collection has a 4K Blu-ray for the pilot, as well as an episode from the limited
Thank
series.
Goodness.
So we can see it in even better quality.
I can see every grain of ketchup.
No, just the pilot. just the pilot.
Grains.
So no grain ketchup unless there's ketchup.
I'll see every atom, every molecule of ketchup.
Just clarifying again, pilot, not episode 12, for 4K. But yeah.
Yes.
Fair
enough. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that before he did the scraping, he said to Donna and Maddie, are you looking for secrets? Is that what this is all about? So there's more of that repetition of secrets as a motif and theme, which seems to be pretty obviously one of the main ideas of Twin Peaks, that no matter who's writing and directing the episode, the idea that secrets are this alluring but dangerous thing. I mean, I remember that moment where Cooper was talking with Audrey and Cooper said he has no secrets. Secrets are dangerous. I'm pretty sure the Log Ladies talked a lot about that already. So Harold kind of indicting, Donna and Maddie, like, hey, if you're looking for secrets, that's dangerous. You shouldn't do that.
Twin Peaks just made of secrets and dreams. But as for the Log Lady intro, though, that was fantastic, especially considering the ending we've got here, because Harold talks about how Laura knows who killed her before he starts rubbing his gardening tool against his face. And in the beginning, the Log Lady ends up talking about a tale of two-headed schizophrenic that in the end both ended up feeling like they were following each other until one day one of them shot the other in the head and the whole body died. And it just kind of reminds me of Jacoby's statement over like having the two individuals in one form. So it can very much harken to that situation. If it's mirroring both ends on that, very cool, kudos. But yeah, in the end, Laura Palmer, though, is not dead. So clearly the second head was just a little bit of an attachment that had to go away and be replaced with Cousin Maddie. But hey,
Well, and I still insisted at this moment, Donna is taking on more and more of Laura's like bad girl persona with the smoking. And so I think having more Donna and Maddie together, those can be seen as two halves of Laura. And that does a lot of mischief for people who had attachments to Laura, i.e. James, i.e. possibly Harold. We still haven't seen Donna and Maddie with Bobby, unfortunately. But,
I think that in the end, like this Donna that we are seeing is not like bad girl Laura. I feel that Laura has influenced her enough. It's just that Donna really has no one to follow anymore. So she almost feels like she has to take her own position on this. Maybe thinking that she has to take this Laura Prime position, or if she just needs to step up for herself.
Yeah, I think she wants to be that, but I don't think she is that right now.
Uh-huh.
I agree with you on that regard. I think that she thinks that this is the way she's going to go. That's what she almost aspires to be, perhaps.
Yeah.
But there might be something in her that's not allowing it, or else she just sucks. Maybe Donna's just bad. Like, not a bad girl as in like, ooh, she's so bad, but more like, oh, she's so bad. I know you're liking Donna more this season than season 1, but
as opposed to the ending of like season 1, in which we're like, oh, Donna's just bad.
Yeah, she's gone from bad to bad.
To bad.
Speaking of people, girls in a bad situation, Audrey Horne, she is still, I don't know how many. I think we're like 5 episodes into season 2 right now. She has been very much in a dangerous place, kind of in limbo.
Oh no, tell me more.
You may have heard of this place called One-Eyed Jack's.
Jack with
one eye.
Right.
Yes.
That thing in which Audrey wrote a letter on, and then we forgot about it for who knows how long. Yeah, I remember that. In fact, Cooper gets a chance to remember it and take the advice of the giant, if this is what it correlates to. Cooper goes ahead and starts his morning off after a bit of rough sleep, notes that there's pain in his ribs, which he treats to about 15 extra minutes of yogic discipline. The thing is that at first, like, I can just see passively watching this and then someone just like connecting it. Oh yeah, it's just straight up yoga. But yogic discipline goes a little bit further, because apparently it is a part of Hindu philosophy advocating and prescribing a course of physical and mental disciplines for attaining liberation from the material world. So he may have been doing crunches to keep up his exercise earlier, but I think he was just hanging upside down from the ceiling just because with the blood rushing to his head, that was a physical discipline that he was using in this yogic way. I'm entertained by the fact that this is just his like morning routine of just trying to find that discipline so he can push the attention of these pains to, as he says, a cul-de-sac in a distant suburb of his mind. So
trying to detach himself from the pain of the world and the pain of his body.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The more I get to lean into Cooper's mind as well as how he operates, it's just more fun for me. But during this, he starts ready his headstand, and he notices the little letter on the ground. And it's like, oh, well, here's Audrey's note. Oh, it's One-Eyed Jack's. And he kind of takes it in the sense of like, okay, we have a one-up on this person, which is this John fellow. Just to try to.
And the timing is both
him.
wonderful and terrible.
Wonderful and strange.
Like, it would have been great if he would have found this letter like 4 days ago.
Yeah.
You know? Instead, he finds it now. But at least in finding it, he found it the day it needed to be found.
Exactly.
Like, he couldn't have waited any longer. So it's both good luck and bad luck.
It's good luck and bad luck, especially in the respects of just making sure Ben can try to take some more risky moves in the future. So, yeah, no, it's very opportune for Cooper, just not so much for Audrey. Audrey hasn't been having a fun few days.
And speaking of Audrey not having a fun time, Jean Reno plans to kill her with a heroin overdose.
Yeah.
So,
well,
you know, I mean, again, as Blackie says, not the worst way to go.
To be fair, he says it's heroin overdose, but Jean Reno says a lot of things. Who knows?
That's true.
What would have happened to Audrey?
Yeah, well, we know what happened to Blackie.
Oh, yeah.
I know Professor Blackie was your favorite character.
Blackie was taken out Assassin's Creed style. I admit I did not see the Ubisoft crossover before the release of the first Assassin's Creed game, but I gotta say, I was mildly surprised.
Yeah, Blackie's one of those characters. I'd be fascinated to know if anyone like loves Blackie. Like, Blackie would be in their top 5 characters from season 1, even. I would be fascinated because I think Blackie's not a bad character. I don't think a lot of people are going to be like hit hard one way or another by her dying. She's kind of a disposable element that I think being disposed of, it propped up Jean more.
I can see people really enjoying Blackie, especially in the respects of season 1, where she is a fairly confident business owner that though she is overimposed by the horns, she still takes her own stance or in her own ways. She's still confident enough in her abilities despite being pushed into this corner with her heroin addictions. So I can see it. But it's just not going to be
morality
common.
aside, it is a shame that Twin Peaks has lost one of its strongest female characters. You know, dubious business interests aside, she is an example of a strong-willed woman who is able to compete. And since Catherine has disappeared and now Blackie has disappeared, what woman is going to challenge Benjamin Horne next?
Nancy.
we need Nadine more than ever.
No, Nancy, definitely Nancy. I know that
maybe
Nadine
Nancy
may have powers surging within her, but let's just face it. If there was someone to replace Blackie, it'd probably be Blackie's sister.
I don't know if Nancy's not doing too great right now, though. So Nancy tries to get the jump on Cooper. We're just going to skip ahead. And Cooper is, rescuing Audrey. He sees in the reflection that Nancy's going to pull a knife on him. And it's obvious to him, but even we listening can hear the sound because it's like dead silent in the room. And all of a sudden you hear this, the world's loudest, knife being unsheathed. And he doesn't even look at her. He's looking at Audrey trying to console her, but then just suddenly out of nowhere with his right hand just like grabs her wrist before she can strike and like mechanically disposes of her. Like he doesn't even have to look.
He did look at first to notice that she was unsheathing the blade through the reflection, but yes.
He didn't have to look when to catch her. Like he just got her. Like an owl grabbing its little rodent.
Like, that's a cool moment, but let's just face it, the better moment is when he's walking through the hallway, walks up to Nancy, and just puts out his hand to shake it. And Nancy, just like as a passive thing, like something someone is so used to, like, okay, yeah, I'll go shake her hand. As soon as, like, he gets a hold of her hand, he just like, twists her around and grabs her by the back. That was beautiful. Like, that was the far more famous maneuver in my mind.
And again, examples of Truman and Cooper going outside the law. Mm-hmm. They are not given jurisdiction to do all of the things they're doing.
Yeah,
Especially
absolutely not.
Cooper. He's not here in Twin Peaks to do this.
Nope.
That is not what he's been ordered to do by Gordon Cole.
Nope. They are freely wandering around this nice little One-Eyed Jacks, which, by the way, two fun details before we skimp over them. One, before they do enter in this operation, Cooper does see an owl, and I want to reference this owl with a later discussion. But he does see an owl, and after he goes in, we also see that there's apparently the Tiberian baths that will be entering in soon. That sounds exciting to have a little bathhouse amongst all the other debauchery going on within One-Eyed Jacks.
I'm kind of surprised that with all the debauchery going on, that the owl would appear because this establishment is not a Hooters. Why is there an owl?
But truly, the Tiberian baths are very fun, if only for my experience in a Latin class with my old Latin teacher, who used to tell us fun little stories of how emperors would, or like great leaders, would do things like build baths and bathhouses just to have people remember them for these great things they've given the people so that they can overlook the more shady things that they've done in their past. And I think that's very fitting for One-Eyed Jacks.
Are you aware of the anime Thermae Rome?
No.
You should watch it sometime. I'm going to go on record officially endorsing Thermae Rome. It's an anime about this bathhouse constructor in ancient Rome, and it reminded me of a lot of what you were saying.
Okay.
If you want something that is about bathhouses in Rome in terms of Japanese animation, it's probably the thing you go to.
Hey, everyone here on the Twin Peaks Logcast is definitely coming for our video game and anime references. So,
we know our market. Yeah. Before we get too far into it, because the thing is, it keeps going back to One-Eyed Jacks throughout the episode. Yeah, so I think it's kind of appropriate that we're kind of jumping around One-Eyed Jacks right now. But to take it back, when Cooper and Sheriff they hear the owl's there, they Truman gut punches the guy and gets inside, and they're walking through the hallways. I don't know how really to describe it, but one thing I think often gets underappreciated in Twin Peaks, and maybe I'm just not around the right, people and communities, I don't sense the love for One-Eye Jacks that I think there almost should be, at least for my own personal selfish motivations. I love the atmosphere of scenes where One-Eye Jacks is portrayed in its more menacing light. I really enjoyed it in season 1 when Ben and Jerry were there, but I also really enjoy it here where Cooper and Truman are going through these hallways, and all the hallways look identical because they have like the same like pattern. I think it's like a floral pattern, and everything's like kind of various shades of red. And when they're going through the hallways, they're listening into the doors to try to find out where Audrey is. Yeah. So they're just like hearing all these like, certain intimate sounds through the doorways. And kind of the sense of mystery, because when when you're looking around and everything looks the same, all the doors look the same, and you're having to rely just on your sound cues, there's kind of that heightened sense of the unknown. And going along with that, there's moments where like they reach the end of a hallway and you don't really see it in the camera work, but you just hear Cooper say like dead end. So like it's almost like a maze, the way it's being portrayed. And the camera work is, handheld kind of in front of them for a lot of it. So it's like tracking in front of them. And I really like that sense of uneasiness and shakiness in the cinematography. So there's just a lot going on with the way that One-Eye Jacks feels that makes it so much more alien and mysterious and dangerous than the other areas in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And I think it lends so much power to people like Jean Reno and Blackie and Ben Horn who have power struggles in this kind of area.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate the atmosphere in that hallway part. One of the episode's highlights for me.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a great highlight. The only criticism I have with that is that both Truman as well as Cooper are sneaking about inside this facility. They stick out like sore thumbs because they decided to wear nice little sweaters while everyone else is in a suit. The first time they had to go, they had to make sure they were wearing suits and nice little spectacles and so on to blend in. But no need this time when we're in the more reserved part of One-Eye Jacks.
Yeah. Sheriff's in this nifty sweater, and Cooper, I wrote he looks like a ninja burglar because he's like dressed in like all black. He looks like the most shady person you could possibly imagine here.
Hey,
and anyone
man,
who like knew about him coming before.
Hey man, I was
gonna say anyone who saw him before knows he's an FBI agent, so he didn't like try to disguise it at all. Anyway, go on.
Yeah,
what are you trying to say?
Hey, when you're gonna go out, you might as well just be cozy, wherever you go.
Yeah, so. Good attitude. So we get Jean Reno killing Blackie. We see more of his 12-faced nature.
Not only that, but the funny thing is that he does ask Ben that like Cooper drop off the package, just specifically drop off the package at the horse with no head. Not stay there, not hang out, but drop it off. And we see another scene, I believe later, where Jean is preparing this Assassin's Creed blade and stabs a couple strawberries, saying like, Cooper, give me the case. But that interaction wouldn't happen if Cooper follows the instructions.
Yeah, that's true. He almost expected him not to follow the instructions.
Either that, or he's just trying to
think.
Either that, or he hasn't let Blackie in on all of it. Yeah. And Blackie thinks that there's a completely different plan.
Maybe.
The best way I can describe John is that Jean's trying to completely win as much as Ben is.
I think he's like a more sinister version of Ben, because even when he kills Blackie, which again, Ben has not been shown to do violence himself. He has other people do it. Jean Reno leans into the kiss, and when he kills her, stabs her, and when he parts the kiss, there's like blood all over his lips, and he like licks it up, which is pretty similar to what he did with when he was giving the chocolate, I think it was, to Audrey. He like sucks on the chocolate or whatever. He's got this sense of savoring it, but in a way that's way creepier than anything Ben's ever done.
Man, like Twin Peaks is just covered in vampires. Everyone just loves drinking and just like using blood all over the place. I have to say, I didn't realize Twin Peaks was going to go straight into Vampire the Masquerade, but hey, here we are.
Yeah. Maybe it's actually a British show because of all the bloody excitement. Because bloody is a...
You know,
term. Anyway,
listeners, I've just got to prepare myself. If you guys hear the cracking of a can, it's because from this point on, I'm going to make sure that I have alcohol at my side for whenever I get to hear Kalil's fantastic bits of humor.
It's his skull,
just so that
like,
I can
cracking and caving in.
enjoy it more.
The last thing I wanted to talk about with this encounter is kind of two things. So when they're on they're linked though. When Cooper and Truman are about to leave, they see this last guard there, and they're about to they have to turn around. They're almost going to get shot, and who comes in and saves the day?
They've been thwarted by Bald Man, but then Huck comes in, saves the day, throws a frickin' blade into the back of this guy. And Hawk just comes in, action movie style, says,
yes,
you guys are terrible at keeping secrets, and runs out with them, which is fantastic. I'll have more to say on this later, but regardless, it's fun that Hawk always has your back. It's just fun that Hawk is every bit of Hawk that I want him to be until it is horribly thrown... until it is horribly thrown out when he does make his turn arc. He is the true villain. I don't think that's going to be the case as much as I joke. Hawk seems like a cool guy.
I think it's the nature of this show that the more virtuous a person is, the more you're just very suspicious of them. I was gonna say, and then this seems unrelated at first, but I'm gonna tie it in. We get stuff with Hank, and in particular, I just want to mention that Hank is outside the One-Eye Jackson. This is happening. He's on the phone calling Ben to update him on the situation. When we see Jean Renault get the jump on him, put the gun to his neck, and looks at Hank's ID, and it's the Daryl Lodwick, the district attorney ID that he swiped in the last episode. And the audio is really hard to hear what John's saying, but John makes a comment right before the cut of the scene that Daryl Lodwick, he's awfully fat. So clearly knowing who Daryl Lodwick is, he knows this is not Daryl Lodwick. Based on, again, this doesn't look like the guy at all. It's not very convincing.
Or he's just insulting Hank, saying like, "Oh, you're awfully fat."
Maybe that's what this is.
Yeah.
It's at night. You don't know. Anyway, maybe you can't see. But what I want to say here, and this is going to be kind of, I'm not spoiling anything when I say this. If I only knew as much as the professor, or if you're listening to this for the first time, this would still be the case. Like this does not say something's going to or not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think based on the way Hank has been used in this season, I think would have been really, really good is if he would have been the one to save Cooper and Truman in this situation. And my reasoning for this is because we know that he was a former Bookhouse boy, one of the best. We've got that indication from Truman. There's a history between those two. And it's always appeared kind of strained and uncomfortable, probably because, again, one went to the law path, one went to the criminal path. But I think the idea that maybe Hank, deep within him, still has some respect or lingering friendship for Truman, he was already there, already watching. He would have known they were in danger. I think him throwing the knife to kill that guard would have been a momentary, like, you know what, I'm going to let you live. I'm going to save you this time. And just kind of not necessarily, just create more tension and more complications for Hank and Truman's relationship. Instead, we get Hawk, which, don't get me wrong, it just makes Hawk seem more awesome. But I don't think Hawk needed it as much as I think Hank needed it more than Hawk did. I know they're only one letter apart. Hank and Hawk are only one letter apart, but there's a difference.
As far as Hank goes, we already know his weapon is a gun. I don't see him carrying around a large knife, so maybe off screen shooting the guy.
He
and
could
they
have
just
shot
don't
him
know.
too. Either way would work. It doesn't have to be a knife. That's not the important part.
I think an off-screen shoot would just make things definitely interesting with Hank. I don't think that Twin Peaks wants to reveal any cards if they think Hank as a card to reveal or domino to reveal. I have never played dominoes. Maybe they reveal them.
I have a domino up my sleeve. What? What game are we playing again?
You've activated my trap domino.
And then you could even have the idea that if it was a shot from a distance, Hank could save Truman and then disappear. And Truman wouldn't know it was him, so Hank could keep it a mystery. he would not need to reveal to anyone what happened. You know?
I think it's telling that Hank staying aside, but also being hesitant. Maybe it was the fact that there was more people around, but the fact that Hank just straight up just reports to Ben and just stays in the area instead of just immediately trying to catch up to Cooper with this report means that at the very least he's throwing in the towel. Maybe there's some hesitance. Maybe he didn't plan on going through with this plan completely in the first place. Who knows? We also know that Hank was walking ahead of Cooper before meeting up with Ben. Whether or not he was purposely like watching out for Cooper, or if there was like an unseen scene, especially seeing Bobby also in the hallway, weirdly enough, that we didn't see. There could be some strange connections here. I think that at this point, Twin Peaks is playing it very carefully, if anything, and is just letting our minds sort of wander on where everyone's standing at the moment.
Yeah, and on that note, I guess I would say that we know that Hank's standings, with not really trying to do this mission, either due to hesitance or just lack of effort or whatever his goals are, it does question his loyalty to Ben. And exactly how much Ben has control over this situation right now, because it seems like Ben's trying to play Cooper and Hank in such a way where Cooper ends up dying from this, and Hank can kind of help him out. And it's like, how long until Ben tries to get rid of Hank then at that point? Because he's just tying up all these loose ends.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, again, Jean Reno keeps winning, and Ben, it seems like he's going to get his daughter back. But otherwise questionable. He does have a victory of the day, though. He does have a victory of the day in the form of a $5 million check that he gets from Mr. Tojamura. As played by Fumio Yamaguchi.
To 3 kids in a trench coat named Tojamura, yes.
So what did you think? I know you have a lot of Tojamura thoughts, some hot Tojamura takes. What did you think of the Asian investment firm? They show up without an appointment. They're going to help with the Ghostwood project. $5 million on the table. If you were Ben, would you take the deal?
There's no investment. There's no investment firm. There's just none. This is bullshit.
What do you think?
Like, there's some strange things that happen in Twin Peaks.
What do you think Tojamura's end goal is here?
I have no freaking idea. But there's no way that this is real. Like, that 500,000, if anything, it'll be a trick against Ben. It's like, oh no, that was in yen. There's confirmation that Tojamura, at the very least, is linked to Japan, potentially, because it's Tokyo, where he claims that this check comes from. But no, every time, like, he's just trying.
I like how everything with Tojamura has to be a question, even down to the pronouns. Like, just total uncertainty with Tojamura.
I told you, they are like 3 kids in business suits.
This?
But no, inside this like deep Pluto voice that I am going to do right now. This is how I'm going to present Tojamura, because this is how Tojamura presents himself. By the way, to the actor,
I mean, it keeps Tojamura interesting. It helps the character stand out.
I am sorry personally towards the actor. If like this is just sort of like a little bit of take, but there's nothing convincing to me about this actor. If you just told me like the actor's credit was a pile of clothing, I would be convinced, because in the end he has this like weird candor that is obviously a fake voice. This is not how someone speaks.
A canned candor.
And
you could say.
And he ends up.
You're just sick of my puns at this point.
I don't have the drink yet. We don't have the cracked can noise cue yet. But anyway, and every time like Ben just tries to say like, no, I'm busy. Tojamura's like, I got this thing, and I've got this thing, and I've got this thing. I was just watching this, and I was perplexed. I'm like, Ben, what are you even falling for? There was a point in which I found you intimidating. I found you a force of reckoning. But this is not someone that I would deal with.
Yeah, Ben and Hank have just kind of taken some, like, power level beatings recently. Like, Jean Reno is just kind of... Like, I want to know what the encounter would be like between Tojamura and Jean Reno. Like I want to see that confrontation.
Like, the check hasn't even been well checked. He didn't even confirm the check. Someone just gave him a check with a big number on it, and he's like, Looks like Ben won today. Ben!
Big bucks for Big Ben.
Ah!
Or Little Elvis, if you prefer.
I'm probably being horrible to this actor, and if so, I am terribly sorry.
Yeah, I think you're being terrible. Very unfair.
But as far as I'm convinced, this is not a voice. I made fun of, like, Ed's opening dialogue of, "Come here, James." And somehow that is more believable than any words that have come out of Tojamura's mouth.
Was Tojamura the strangest thing in this episode for you?
Okay, no, like, here's the thing. Strange can be the respect of, like, going into Ripley's Believe It or Not. Tojamura is like the offshoot of that across town with people on like $10 worth of a budget trying to make a quick buck of like people like taping a hand to the back of like a rat carcass and saying, "Ooh, it's a hand rat." Again, what did you say his name was?
What?
What did you say the actor's name was?
Fumio Yamaguchi.
Fumio Yamaguchi. If you are listening to this podcast and you are hearing my mocking tones, I know everything when it comes towards like the acting community, getting in on these sort of things and being a part of these productions is difficult. And Lynch sometimes requests strange things to be included in his work. I have accepted this. And this guy, it might have been a director's choice. It might have been just something in which he was having a fun time. And I don't know. But I do know that if any of these cases come up, or if I'm just being outright cruel, Fumio, I am sorry. I am genuinely sorry. But yeah, just like we were implying before, as far as Ben goes, Tojamura ruses or what have you, he is someone who just wants to win. And when Cooper goes out and is ready to take on this mission, Cooper, who has been nothing but reliable for the town these past 12 days, who has made best friends with the sheriff in the past 12 days. He just seems like a very well guy that does genuinely care about Horn's daughter. Horn then tells Hank that Cooper's not coming home. You're going to take care of it. And he just wants the money and Audrey back. And he's so confident that he's going to get it back. It's my question of whether or not, like, Ben is just a big gambler, as the setting of One-Eyed Jacks could suggest, or if Ben is just so used to winning, so used to a sense of victory, and so used to things going his way, that he just makes a demand on Hank and just says, just get it done. This is how things are going to go for me. It definitely puts a cool light on Ben, if anything.
I think one thing that's really interesting to highlight at this time, and I think you and I talking behind the scenes on the podcast, just planning things, we might have touched upon this more than actually on the air. But one situation that presents itself is, having rewatched this show, having watched it before, I feel like I'm in more of a mindset to be critical of things that I would change and do differently, because I know where it goes, but even just because I'm familiar with it. Whereas you're going in kind of with these fresh eyes. Okay. Everything is new to you, and don't get me wrong, you have your criticisms, you have your things you just dislike, but you're more just appreciating it on face value for the first time, and I think that's perfectly valid. I don't want to ever crush that. But as I voiced some thoughts earlier, that I do think Hank should have been the one to save Truman and Cooper there. I am in this position where occasionally I do want to voice some things where it's like, I would change this, and if someone disagrees, I mean, that's perfectly fine. It's just different opinions about the series. I'm going to say controversial things down the road. I know it. Mm-hmm. And Twin Peaks has some hot takes and controversial positions. But one thing I will say here, without getting into spoilers, I do think that Ben's attitude toward Cooper here is strange. I won't say it's good or bad, because I think it's kind of complicated. His ultimate desire here seems to be to get Audrey, but he does it in a very detached way. We don't see Ben overly emotional about it. And I think that almost shows the sense that he's detached from his emotions, and he doesn't really show them, let alone maybe even feel them. He approaches rescuing his daughter like it's a business transaction and one that he intends to win. But I do wonder what his interest is in having the Laura Palmer mystery like solved. And if he, how should I put this? If Ben Horn, what his feelings are on Cooper and Laura and law enforcement in general, how much of his is just readiness to not care about Cooper being expendable. There's just so much kind of going on where it's like, it just strikes me as strange and noteworthy. Something we'll touch upon later when we find out more about Ben. But I'll just say that, yeah, at this point, I just think it's interesting that he is so quick to not care about Cooper possibly dying. I think it's very interesting, and put a bookmark in that one.
To finish off and just tuck that bookmark in a little bit deeper, I'm more susceptible to believe that he's okay with the loss. More so, he's trying to tie loose ends away. As far as what plans he might have for Jean, I have no clue. But as far as Ben is concerned, Ben was shown that Cooper was at One-Eyed Jack sniffing into his business. And Jean is coming forward saying that Cooper's going to be involved with everything that's happened with Audrey. And from what I can tell, Ben doesn't like having anything held above him. If even one person knows about something in which he has faltered in, or this reputation that he's sort of gained, I can see him just trying to eliminate any sort of threats. And as far as Cooper goes, he has more intel than I think anyone in Ben's position would be comfortable with.
You bring up very good points.
But yeah,
we will continue this more at a later time.
I look forward to it.
I appreciate your commentary there, because I can see multiple angles to approach this in.
Not to mention, there's also a strange thing to consider with Ben, because Ben did also visit the trial of Leland, but as soon as like Leland was given like a thumbs up on some leap before the trial, like that's when effectively his boss Ben packs up and gets ready to go with just kind of a rush, but not so much of a reaction. He found out how much it's going to affect him, basically. Yeah. And so far, I'm looking forward to how this is going to affect Ben and how he's going to react to any more Leland. So, yeah.
Been there, done that.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So, I don't need to talk about this for too long, but I wanted to return to Hawk a little bit. We talked about how he was apparently trailing Cooper and Truman. It was very obvious to him what they were doing. So he kind of kept tabs and at the end saved them, which, good for them. I just found it really funny that like Hawk's not a major character in this episode, but he is so consistently just doing all the work, like the actually important work. While I'm not saying saving Audrey's not important, but he was the one looking into the situation with the Palmer Lake house, and apparently he comes back like almost out of breath because he had to drink so many pots of chamomile tea with these two former teachers. Three. Yeah. That's a lot of tea.
3 pots of tea, not 3 teachers. 2 teachers.
2 teachers, 3 teas. Gotcha. He reports that, the Kalispell family, they're 2 retired school teachers. They don't know anything about some gray-haired man. So that raises some questions about, what Leland said. But Hawk does the research on that. He's being run ragged, I should say. Because then as soon as he says this, Truman's like, okay, thanks. Oh, remember to keep looking for the one-armed man. So Hawk is just on a journey. He is just on a quest, scouring this town. I want to believe like he's in a bunch of like weird locations around the town with binoculars, just like looking around. Like they should have done it like in the Double R diner scene where like it was James, I think it was in there talking with Donna or Maddie or whoever it was. I think it was Maddie. They should have just had behind the counter of the Double R Hawk with binoculars, just looking around, trying to find that one-armed man. So he's trying to research what's going on with the Kalispell family and the mysteries of Bob Robertson, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
And then you've got the situation where he's looking into the one-armed man, and now he's also rescuing their butts. Like Hawk is just doing the work of like 5 people
Yeah.
I don't have much to say on it. I just thought, like, for how not much screen time, not a lot of lines, Hawk is doing so much legwork. Meanwhile, also working for the police, while Cooper and Truman are off on their little side quest.
No. Please say that segue again. Say that segue again. Meanwhile, speaking of just working for the police.
Yes. Let me get to my point, Professor. We have Cooper and Truman, the sheriff, on their side quest saving Audrey. You have Hawk doing the work of 5 people. What is Deputy Andy doing? This episode, all I really get the sense he's doing is checking on his sperms.
More effort than you, because he is stepping in for Lucy, it seems, because he is covered in notes as he's like taking care of
that's true.
Business, because in the end, sometimes the can-do ladies cannot do, so Truman has said that they can handle it.
Fair.
Not telling her that there is no can-do girl, unless Andy also works as a can-do girl.
I think Lucy's a lot more qualified for the position than
yeah,
Andy
but
is.
he tries.
But to be fair, if I said that Hawk is doing the work of 5 men, Andy is doing the work of a whole damn town. So I do need to clarify.
Yes. Andy does try, though. I still appreciate that scene with Truman in which, like, Lucy is really wants to help out the place. And Truman's like, no, we got it. We've got it. It's okay, Lucy. We've got it. And just slowly just make sure she gets towards the door. But yeah, and he's taking care of business. He's taking all sorts of notes, and he eventually gets a call. Apparently, like, he just told them to call the police station about his sperm. And good news for anyone holding out.
Which would have been awkward if Lucy had answered.
Actually, no, he called, didn't he? Yeah, he called.
Yeah, you're right. He called. Yeah.
Regardless.
And then he called a second number afterward, which he thought was going to get him Lucy.
Let's not go that far yet. Let's not go that far yet. But yeah, he was told that it's okay because his sperm went from like 3 men in a boat to a whole damn town. And he has this fantastic victory screech. And then Andy just goes ahead and he, like, bless his heart, he tries to call Lucy to tell her about his sperm. This won't stop the baby situation, but I guess he thinks it helps. And when he does contact this number, he realizes that Lucy did, like, put down the names of her sister as well as her husband. But it calls the abortion clinic, which leads to, like, a couple questions. One, what happens if there was, like, an issue with the can-do girl situation, and the can-do girl does try to call and contact Lucy and gets in contact with the abortion clinic? Would she just then ask for Lucy there? Secondly, this is very, very, very concerning. Let's just face it. Lucy's going through a lot. Lucy is not having a fun time. And where we left off previously with Lucy and Tremaine was the one, this is Lucy's choice. If Lucy feels that this is best for her, then okay. But she seemed incredibly lost last episode, and Tremaine offered her a solution with multiple numbers. And though she did not take the money, my only hope is that Tremaine's cowardice to talk about the situation and the options and see if this was right for Lucy didn't push Lucy into a state of paranoia that she felt that this was the best option for her.
Yeah, I don't think he so much offered a solution so much as assumed a solution.
He assumed a solution.
He didn't think there was a conversation to happen. He just thought, okay, well, obviously you're going to get an abortion, so here's the money. I managed to find it under my couch.
Yeah. Suffice to say, Andy's in a little bit of a panic. I have no clue what's going to happen next, but things aren't looking good for Tremaine. For me, at least. If Lucy is happy with this decision, and this is what she does want, like we just didn't see on screen, but after her talk with Cooper, she decided that this is what she wants, fine. I'm just not fully convinced quite yet, just because ever since then, we haven't seen a really like confident Lucy. We've seen a nervous Lucy, a worried Lucy, and someone who wants a little bit of control in her life, Lucy. And she has not been getting it. So this is going to be an interesting next chapter in Twin Peaks, to say the least. Beyond that, there's definitely some tough choices to be made on Lucy's end. There's just tough choices all around. Not to mention, like, at the trials where we're deciding two different very interesting cases, that being Leo as well as Leland Palmer. But if you wanted to elaborate a little bit more on the Palmer trial, Kalil.
So yeah, the Leland, not the Leo Lind, the first of the trials.
This was so hard to make notes on.
Leo Leland,
Leland, Leo la 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 la.
Lele Lule Lo. I hope I said that right for all you Metal Gear Solid fans listening to this podcast. Our community of Assassin's Creed and Metal Gear Solid fans. No, I thought it was kind of interesting that the town doesn't have a courthouse. They just use the roadhouse, the Bang Bang Bar. They just use that as a makeshift court system.
Absolutely. It definitely works though. It's effective.
Yeah. They have a hearing to determine whether bail will be granted for Leland. They hear like a few opinions, and it seems like it's wrapped up extremely quickly. Sheriff Truman speaks on behalf of Palmer and basically says that ever since his like grandfather Jeffrey Palmer, whatever, set foot there, they've been in this community for like 75 years. So he speaks to the man's history with the town, seems to be part of the argument. And then also that, Leland suffered a loss that, they really don't know what it's like to lose a daughter the way he did. So it's an appeal to, hey, this is a person who's part of this community. It's one of us. And then also this indication of he went through significant loss. Then the other lawyer, actually, I don't remember the little lawyer even said much. I think that was more of the Leo case where the lawyer got a lot to say. But basically, go on.
In the end, but that's the thing. The state attorney just simply said that no, I don't believe that Leland should be passed, like get bail. He did something terrible. And Leland represented himself with Truman butting in very nice words about him. So just not much to say.
And it just kind of got wrapped up very quickly. Clinton Sternwood, our Cowboy Viking judge, just was like, yep, you can go back to your home. Just, you got to report to the sheriff every now and then. We'll have a ASAP. We'll schedule your next hearing. We'll set a date. That's really all we got. Like, it was a very, very quick trial. What'd you think of that?
The way that anything like this is set up almost guarantees something's going to happen with Leland that's going to overall hurt his reputability. Whether he just like spontaneously leaves Twin Peaks to go to Triple Peaks off next time. He lifts it up. We can only trust in Leland. He's willing to do the things other people can't.
That's the way to put it. Yeah, like
Sure.
Kill Jacques with a pillow.
Like kill Jacques with a pillow.
He bit the bullet that day. Anyway.
Bit the bullet, baby.
How did we not make that joke until now? That he bit the bullet. How did we never? Anyway.
Bit the bullet. I don't know. But yeah, in the end, it seems that Leland has accrued a lot of trust within the community. Suffice to say, it looks like things are going to be at least more calm for Leland until they're not.
Sure. The second trial after Leland is Leo. And Leo is...
Can we just appreciate the large portraits just kind of...
What was that?
Can we just appreciate the large portraits of Leo that are set up during this hearing?
Some great candid shots.
It was almost deliberate to just kind of like be like, oh, look at this lovely shot of Leo. Nice and pampered up. Just this lovely thing. And then him inside the hospital. I feel like the defendant really wanted to... push his side of the agenda, so he put up two very nice portraits up in order to try to
the same lawyer who said that trying Leo Johnson would be a mockery of the justice system because basically he's not like mentally competent at this point enough to really complete their testing. He can't comprehend what's happening if they had a trial, so he felt like it's just not appropriate to try someone in his current condition. And then I love the other lawyer because you know how you start. He's like recognizing the situation. He's like, I know Leo Johnson isn't in very good shape. It's just like, you think, I don't know. It's just, I love that's the way he starts this argument.
It's putting it lightly, but he does.
I think this looks bad, and he makes the claim that, trials are more than just for punishing the criminal. It's also for bringing a sense of justice to the community. And he just goes on and on about how Leo should stand trial. It's going to be important for the community to get a sense of catharsis. And our cowboy Viking judge, Clinton Stern, was just kind of like rolling his eyes a bit. You could see him like deflate.
Yeah, in the end, like, Lodwick is coming off a strong on this. He's almost just very frightening in the sense of, is like, he deserves to stand trial as much as this town deserves retribution. And I'm just looking at this madman. It just reminds me of like, I know Leo's a bad guy. He deserves this trial. He needs to go to this trial because he's done bad things. But at the same
controversial position, Leo Johnson's bad.
But at the same time, Lodwick is if you put his actor in the position of just like preparing to burn a witch, it fit just as much.
Oh yeah. And then Clinton Sternwood, the judge, he goes and sits at the bar basically with Cooper and Sheriff. Basically, just talks with them. Feeling out the situation.
Yeah, would this recess even be allowed? Because there's like
this seems very bad.
Like he's like saying like, okay, my two buddies, let's talk as I'm the judge, so I can decide this.
The justice system in Twin Peaks is very bad.
He gets them drinks, like alcohol, drinking on the job.
Yes,
and
in front of everyone.
Yep, 3 black Yukon sucker punches.
And they pack a sucker punch. He said they catch up on you. Like, don't drink too many of these. So,
there's things
drink.
I gotta say about this small little scene, if you don't mind me just like picking this up, Kalil.
I mind, but in a good way.
But yeah, inside he just takes them aside, and he just goes ahead and I'm sorry, what was the law clerk's name again? Sid? Yes, Sid.
Sid, yeah.
He just says, Sid, hey, prepare us 3 black Yukon sucker punches. And Sid seems like she is worryingly like ready on this. Like, this is not an uncommon occurrence. She gets them.
This is her main job.
She gets them ready. Meanwhile, Cooper, the FBI agent, prepares like the napkins for everyone. So he seems all down for this. He's getting all of the placeholders for it and just making sure the bar stays nice and neat since they're using it. Not to mention, there's also just the funny fact that you even hear a blender or some rotating device going off in the background, and just like a millisecond, I would say a second. I'm not going to say it was immediate, but a second later, Sid suddenly has these drinks at the ready. I don't know what she turned on or prepared that required it, but regardless, there's these nice little black foaming beverages. The foam is blue foam on top. And where have we seen a strange blue color before? Oh, I don't know. Why don't we ask Ronette? Or why don't we ask the one-armed man? See if they may have tried these little sucker punches. But you know what? Maybe it's just a cool color. Maybe it's a special drink.
Hey, Albert was convinced it was just dye. Like, don't worry.
Yeah, it's just dye in here. They took dye and just made it because that's what says sucker punch, the color blue. Maybe. Yeah.
It does.
Regardless,
it really does, doesn't it?
The black and blue.
Like if you're thinking of like what color do I want my walls in my new living room?
Black and blue.
I'm thinking like a nice blue sucker punch. You know.
But yes.
Something when they walk into the living room, they just feel like they got hit with strong alcohol.
And Sternwood ends up just consoling with them, just saying that, asking a few questions as these drinks are being made. He says that these are going to pack a punch. Both Sternwood and Truman just guzzle it down. Cooper's there. He doesn't touch it. Like, he prepared the napkins. He just looks at them and looks at the beverage, and he's hesitant around it. He's hovering at the napkin, not even touching the glass. And then Sternwood just goes ahead and tells Truman, like, tell Shelley, we're just gonna let Leo go. Leo will be with Shelley. And while Truman is away, Sternwood goes ahead and asks Cooper, you know what, how long have you been here? Cooper says 12 days. Still surprisingly, because he has a blood bond with Truman in these past 12 days.
12 days. We are on episode 12
right
12 now, days, right?
Yes.
Like, just to clarify.
Yep. And in the end, he lets Cooper know to keep an eye out on the woods. They are wondrous but strange. And around this point, Cooper does bring the liquid closer to his mouth, but we don't see him drink it. Like, Sternwood is very eerie at this moment, and he's been saying interesting things just specifically for Cooper's ear. We also get later on, as I've mentioned before, the owl. Whether or not Sternwood knows something more and may know more about these owls, like something is legitimately watching them, or who knows, like Hawk did say that both Truman as well as Cooper are terrible at keeping secrets. Maybe he hung out at the door after he told them about the little bits of information he got and just listened in on him. Maybe Hawk's connected to the forest somehow. Regardless, owl before the lodge, and after the lodge, Hawk appears. It's a strange instance. I think that the most important message that we get from the forest and the owls and Sternwood looks into a sense of the owls are not what they seem. Automatically, that seems like a worrying statement. And I don't think that I'm alone in the respects of people may think that there's something bad about the owls. Like there's something in which you had to be hesitant or worrisome about the owls. I think that this wondrous and strange aspect that Sternwood speaks about should also be applied to the owls. They may not be enemies. They may not be allies. They may be wondrous and strange, and they need to be handled at a case-by-case basis, whatever they may be. Whether or not they are Hawk, Bob, and everyone who has been weird in the town just happens to be owls, who knows? But yeah, I think that is deserving of that perspective. Whether or not the color is just dependent on what we are experiencing from these woods and the differences in Twin Peaks and is simply supposed to be a noticeable narrative device, or if there was something legitimate in that beverage is still to be found out. But I love this. I love this scene. I love the fact we don't see Cooper drink his beverage. It's good.
Very well spoken. I would be tempted to say we should just end the episode on that note, but we do have a little bit to cover that I feel like I'd be remiss to completely leave out.
Yeah.
We'll obviously probably get more information coming up soon, but let's wrap up with Nadine.
Wait, we're not done.
With
No. But we were going to go to more of Leo, Bobby, Shelley, Leo, and Pinkle.
Oh, yeah, gosh, dang, I'd really be remiss to not mention that. We meet a new character, Mr. Pinkle. And this is a section I called Mr. Pinkle in the Incredible Comedy Chair.
No, it's not.
Also, he's the most canceled character on the show so far. I mean, Leo Johnson did attack his wife with a bar of soap, so that's pretty bad. But Mr. Pinkle, when he's trying to get the chair to work, he says sometimes you gotta hit it. A machine is like a woman, we always say at the shop.
No,
Mr. Pinkle.
It's not just like hit it. He says hit it hard. Mr.
Pinkle.
Don't say it like that.
Just don't say it.
Just don't say it.
Just don't say it.
Just don't say it. We're all better for not saying it.
Anything else you want to say about Mr. Pinkle?
Mr. Pinkle. You know what? Usually I do like the con artist characters, but there's nothing going for Mr. Pinkle. Like his death traps he's setting up are just frightening, to say the least. I'm very glad to see that both Shelley and Bobby are actually looking to help out Leo. Maybe in the respects of being they're going to get more insurance money, the better that it looks like it's off for Leo. But I would imagine in the past, with all that Leo has done to Bobby, how Leo has treated Bobby, giving him a death machine of a thing in which he has a hard time getting into bed, I would imagine would seem more appealing to Bobby. But no, he says that, no, this is unacceptable. You gotta fix this. Shelley says, you gotta build a ramp. And Pinkle's just muttering, it's like, oh, yeah, of course, I've got the wood. I'll be able to do that tomorrow. Yeah, ramp, good idea, good input. But it seems like they're actually following through with like commodities for Leo to have a comfy living despite all the bad stuff they're doing.
Now can I talk about Nadine?
You have nothing to add to that.
No, not really. we'll see more with Bobby and Shelly and Leo
Then I'll bring up one more thing. We'll cut out this point. And not to mention...
No, don't... I actually kind of want us to keep this.
And not to mention with Bobby. Bobby had... Like, we see Bobby in 2 scenes. 1, where he's talking about his cousin Leo and how he wants to make sure he's comfortable. And 2, he's following Hank inside the Great Northern. Like, he just so happens... in all places of the world, following Hank close behind at the Great Northern. Why? What does he do after? That's to be seen. Maybe we'll get one of those weird timeline situations like with the one-armed man, where you get to see more of an interaction with that. But Bobby is definitely doing Bobby things, but I don't know what those things are.
We do have an indication that Bobby knows that Hank shot Leo, right? Like, when that situation happened, I believe it was shown that Bobby looked out the window, and Hank was looking into the window too. So depending on the lighting, it's, depending on how that worked out, they might know the other person's implicated in that event.
Potentially, but how much Hank knows about Bobby?
Potentially, it's not really been confirmed yet on either side.
And how much Hank knows about Bobby and how much Bobby knows about Hank? Maybe Bobby's just trying to get more information on the situation, and he's just trying to get a sort of like hand on what the hell's up with Hank. Maybe he's trying to do more stuff that he's done with Leo. Regardless, it's a scene that happens with no resolution and no follow-up. It's just him at the Great Northern. So, curious. Speaking of curious things, let's go ahead and talk about Nadine.
I don't feel like talking about her.
Talk.
Oh, fine. If I truly must talk about Nadine. She comes home with Ed and doesn't know who James is. So that's not a good sign. Yeah. She thinks she just remembers to be fair, he's from the high school.
To be fair, and at first, James isn't too deterred about this until she starts bringing up high school, because we've seen a scene before in which Nadine didn't really fully recognize James. Maybe it was just in a moment of just being lost with herself while she was holding on to Ed. But yeah, this is Nadine not recognizing James turned up to 11, and even James is starting to get a full-on reaction out of her after she's like, I was in the high school. We must not be taking the same classes. Ooh, I'm just gonna get something from here. Oh, where are my parents? Ed, deer in headlights. They're not here. Oh, okay. And she goes off.
And James, probably knowing Laura went to see Dr. Jacoby and how well that turned out, he endorses Dr. Jacoby as the solution. Yeah. And Ed can't do that because Jacoby's in Hawaii recovering from the heart attack. I don't know, if in the real world, this actor might have been doing something else at this time. That's kind of what this feels like. But gives a reason for Jacoby not to be around.
No. There's something important, because we already were alluded to Dr. Jacoby going off to Hawaii. That was already stated that he had plans.
Okay, yeah.
But they say it's because of his heart attack. Jacoby was hit in the back of the head. So apparently there's 3 different options here, all right? It's either A, we're just not talking about Jacoby's assault. People might be covering up, maybe Jacoby himself is covering up, being assaulted in town.
That's true, yeah. I mean, the assault would lead to a heart attack, but I think in conversation you would say assault is the main thing.
Or B, it is using it metaphorically, the heart attack that happened to Jacoby, when you hear about it, it's like a heart attack.
Maybe. I don't blame Jacoby for wanting to get out of town when last time he was around Twin Peaks, he got assaulted in the night.
Or
so
C,
maybe going to Hawaii is a good idea.
Or C, there was just a separate off-screen heart attack, in which case, oh no, Jacoby.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Speaking of oh no, Nadine grabs the fridge door and she grabs the fridge door, and it's yanked off the hinges with her bestial strength.
Yeah, The thing is that we've seen Nadine's strength before with her Olympic equipment, but the thing is that she now has a mindset in her past. I don't know how much Nadine is trained. I do not know if this power level has been present before, but regardless, it is very interesting to see Nadine's super strength at play. She's holding on to the whole door frame, and there's this weird, strange cut where she grunts like a gorilla and holds up the mighty door. Great and powerful. I don't know whether or not this is going to be a situation where Nadine becomes the hero Twin Peaks needs or the villain by the end of the series, depending on which stance she takes from this point on. So,
hey, if you're listening to this, please leave us a comment or review or email telling us which Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises character you think Nadine is going to become in the future episodes. Our email is at snakeeyedreams@gmail.com. Our Twitter handle is at snakeeyedreams1, and our YouTube is Snake Eye Dreams.
I would argue anything. Like, it could just be like, what is Nadine going to become in general? Because personally, I'm thinking a King Kong situation. She has the super strength. She's going to take Ed to the top of, like, the Empire State Building and wave off airplanes as she clutches onto Ed. It's going to be a great scene. I'm sure this is going to exactly happen in Twin Peaks. All my predictions are correct.
Speaking of correct predictions.
Yes.
I have to ask you, I don't know how much this episode really swayed you, but who killed Laura Palmer?
Laura Palmer's second-headed schizophrenic self killed Laura Palmer, because that's how the story was told.
So Maddie killed Laura Palmer?
It's very interesting. I'm sure that there is a way to explain it, but just imagining someone with two heads.
So do you believe Maddie killed Laura Palmer killed Laura Palmer, or there's another like two-faced shady nightmare creature killing Laura Palmer?
I think that in the end, Laura Palmer is dead and Maddie rose from the ashes. And that's my answer.
So Laura is dead.
Laura is dead, but she's not.
Because you said she's dead not earlier.
Dead, but she is. The idea of Laura Palmer, as we know it, is dead.
The concept. Sure.
You're asking for clarity, but at the same time, I'm watching Twin Peaks. The more we'll go through, I'm sure the more insane I'll sound.
Well, we're 1/4 of the way through the shows, so. And that's not even including like the movies and the books and all that sort of stuff.
Oh no,
so, we're in for the long haul here. Any last words you want to end the podcast on, or was that maniacal laugh the ending point? I feel like we've ended a lot of podcast episodes with us maniacally laughing.
I think that it's important to end an episode on a lesson for people to carry with themselves and keep their spirits high. So my lesson for you today is that if you are told that you are a can't-do girl, know that, in truth, all of you are can-do girls.
Ciao.
I'm pressing the record button is on.